Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. Today we delve into a chilling case that unfolded on Ganghwa Island, a remote enclave on the western coast of South Korea. Despite its proximity to Seoul, less than 30 miles away, the island's rugged landscape and limited transportation have hindered its growth. Here, life revolves around age-old traditions, with residents engaged in fishing, rice farming, and ginseng cultivation. While the surface of this land appears steeped in history and simplicity, a sinister undercurrent of superstition looms, a force that would soon impact today's narrative. Yoon Baek-hee fell victim to this very superstition. In the days leading up to the tragedy, Baek-hee's life painted a picture of idyllic happiness. She enjoyed a loving family, a successful husband, and a remarkable bond with her mother-in-law, Mrs. Kim. Her husband, a ginseng farmer, was a respected figure in the Hwaseong area of Gyeonggi Province. While not a tycoon, he commanded respect on the small island, where reputation mattered. Yet, fate can be cruel. On April 1, 2008, Kim tragically lost his life in a car accident. The serene fabric of Baek-hee's life unraveled in an instant. Her elderly mother-in-law, unable to cope with the loss of her son, fell gravely ill. To compound the family's grief, their daughter, Kim Seon-young, plunged into deep despair. At just 47 years old, Baek-hee found herself shouldering the weight of her family's anguish alone. One would expect admiration or sympathy for a woman of such strength, especially with the family's breadwinner gone, leaving behind only vulnerable relatives. With her son away on military service, compassion from the community seemed a natural expectation. However, the reality was starkly different. Instead of support, whispers of gossip began to circulate. Rumors suggested that Baek-hee had a dangerous interest in shamanistic practices. From the locals' perspective, such activities were known to invite misfortune. They speculated that Kim's death was the result of a curse linked to Baek-hee's rituals. Some even insinuated that following Kim's demise, she had received a staggering insurance payout of 270 million won, roughly $270,000, coupled with inherited assets that catapulted her into millionaire status, possessing around 5 billion won, or approximately $5 million in total. What sympathy could the villagers muster for a woman who seemed to have gained wealth overnight? Envy replaced empathy, and as rumors grew, Baek-hee's demeanor remained stoic amidst the relentless chatter. Gradually, the gossip began to fade, but an unexpected turn of events reignited the islanders' speculation. On June 7, 2008, Kim Seon-young did not attend school. When her teacher attempted to reach out to Baek-hee for clarification, her phone went unanswered. It was as if both mother and daughter had vanished into thin air. Questions arose. Why had the police not been called immediately? And why did rumors begin to spread like wildfire? The answer lay in the staggering wealth Baek-hee had supposedly accrued after her husband's death. Why would she choose to remain on a small island when she could escape and enjoy life elsewhere? Consequently, when news of their disappearance echoed throughout the island, the initial reaction was one of vindication for the villagers. They believed Baek-hee had finally shed her facade of virtue and fled with her daughter, abandoning her elderly mother-in-law and taking her wealth with her. However, Mrs. Kim refused to succumb to the rumors. Understanding Baek-hee's true character, she held fast to the belief that her daughter-in-law was incapable of such betrayal. Despite her mounting worry for both Baek-hee and Seon-young, she found solace in the thought that Yoon Baek-hee had set out for Seoul on what was presumed to be a business trip, while her granddaughter was thought to be engaged in volunteer work. The family anticipated their return within days. Yet, as a week passed, the silence grew heavier, thick with unease. Yoon Baek-hee's mother-in-law, initially unconcerned, found herself consumed by worry. Not from the fear of a voluntary departure, but from the emergence of chilling rumors sweeping through the island. Locals began to whisper about a disturbing pattern. Every 2 years, women seemed to vanish without a trace. In 2006, a 19-year-old girl had disappeared after leaving a coffee shop in Guangxi, leaving no clues behind. With the specter of this past incident looming, Yoon Baek-hee's mother-in-law's anxiety deepened, and she became increasingly frantic over the safety of her daughter-in-law and granddaughter. Finally, on June 18th, she made the decision to approach the police, desperate for answers. However, the officers on Ganghwa Island met her concerns with indifference. To them, the 11 days of silence since June 7th hardly constituted an emergency. The investigators shared the villagers' skepticism. A staggering 99% believed Yoon Baek-hee had simply taken her daughter and wealth to start anew elsewhere, while the remaining 1% speculated about the possibility of a cult's involvement. The consensus painted this as a voluntary disappearance, one devoid of any criminal implications. Yet, as procedural protocol dictated, an island patrol was still initiated. The investigators approached this task with a half-hearted attitude, convinced that nothing of consequence would emerge. But fate had other plans. While on patrol, they stumbled upon Yoon Baki's Sangyong car parked on a secluded hill. This unexpected discovery sent alarms ringing in their minds. To understand the gravity of this find, one must recognize that access to and from Ganghwa Island depended entirely on a single sea bridge. If Yoon Baek-hee had intended to leave, she would have had to drive across it. The presence of her car on the island indicated one troubling reality. She had not left at all. If she hadn't left, then what had happened to both her and her daughter during the 10 days of their absence? Something sinister was clearly at play. The police promptly escalated this lead to their superiors, but the response was far from encouraging. The leadership at the police station dismissed the significance of this information. They theorized that Yoon Baek-hee may have intentionally abandoned her car to evade detection, deeming it a trivial matter for a woman of her means who could easily procure another vehicle. Fortunately, Yoon Baek-hee's family remained steadfast in their belief that she would never abandon them for monetary gain. They tirelessly pressed the investigation forward, providing any leads they could muster. Yoon Baek-hee's brother-in-law offered a critical piece of information. On the morning of June 6th, just a day before the disappearance, she had confided in him about a string of burglaries plaguing her home. In 1 week, her house had been ransacked 3 times, with jewelry disappearing from her drawers each time. Perhaps wary of the local police's track record, Yoon Baek-hee opted not to file an official report. Instead, she sought her brother-in-law's help in installing a surveillance camera. However, when he returned that very afternoon with the equipment, he found her home empty and no one could say where she had gone. This revelation suggested that Yoon Baek-hee may not have vanished on June 7th at all, but rather, her disappearance could have occurred around noon on June 6th. So, what distinction did it make whether she disappeared on the 6th or the 7th? The difference, as it turned out, was profound. Remember, the alarm of their disappearance was raised on June 7th, when Yoon Baek-hee's daughter, Kim Seon-young, failed to attend school that day. If that was the case, it indicated that on June 6th, Kim Seon-young was still leading a normal life, attending school as usual. Yet, according to her brother-in-law's account, Yoon Baek-hee had vanished by noon on that same day. The distinction between disappearing on June 6th or 7th loomed large in the investigation. This was a critical detail, as the disappearance was first noted on June 7th. On that day, Yoon Baek-hee's daughter, Kim Seon-young, failed to attend school. This absence suggested that on June 6th, Seon-young had been going about her day as usual. However, according to her brother-in-law's account, Yoon Baek-hee had vanished by noon on June 6th. The implications of these timelines weighed heavily on the investigation. If Seon-young was indeed at school on June 6th, it painted a stark picture of her mother's sudden disappearance, a suddenness that left many questions hanging in the air. The police were determined to establish who had picked up Kim Seon-young from school. To clarify the sequence of events, they visited Ganghwa High School, where she was a student. There, they encountered a surprising revelation from the homeroom teacher. The teacher recounted that although Kim Seon-young had attended school on June 6th, she had requested to leave shortly after lunch. The request had come from none other than Yoon Baek-hee herself. That afternoon, Yoon Baek-hee had called the homeroom teacher, asking to speak with her daughter. The teacher handed the phone to Kim Seon-young, unaware of the chilling nature of the conversation that was about to unfold. The atmosphere in the classroom was eerily quiet, and the phone's volume was loud enough for the teacher to overhear the exchange between mother and daughter. In a tone that sent shivers down the teacher's spine, Yoon Baek-hee told her daughter, "You must come home immediately from school. There's an important posthumous matter concerning your father that requires your presence." Kim Seon-young had an important exam scheduled that afternoon and had intended to use that as an excuse to decline her mother's request. But Yoon Baek-hee's voice turned stern. "Aren't you going to listen to me?" she demanded. "I've already spoken to the homeroom teacher. A Santana will come to pick you up soon. Quickly pack your things and prepare to go home." The homeroom teacher found this sudden change in tone unsettling, considering his previous experiences with Yoon Baek-hee. Yoon Baek-hee had always been gentle and kind, never speaking in such a commanding manner before. However, given the recent loss of her husband and her responsibilities caring for her elderly mother and young child, the teacher rationalized her poor mood as understandable. Reflecting on that moment now, the homeroom teacher recognized several unusual aspects of the call. For one, Yoon Baek-hee drove a Korean-made Sangyong, so whose Santana was coming to pick up her daughter. Additionally, according to Yoon Baek-hee's family, all funeral arrangements for her husband had been completed, leaving no reason for Kim Seon-young to be involved. From these discrepancies, the police theorized that Yoon Baek-hee was likely under duress. If this was true, the situation for both mother and daughter was perilous. As the investigation deepened, the suspicions of the detectives proved accurate. On July 1, 2008, the bodies of Yoon Baek-hee and Kim Seon-young were discovered in a desolate reed field near the embankment, as reported by the media. The scene was so horrific that journalists described it as unbearable to look at. The bodies had decomposed to such an extent that news reports deliberately refrained from sharing graphic details. It was simply stated that DNA testing would be necessary to confirm their identities. Under such grim circumstances, forensic experts found it exceptionally challenging to uncover any clues regarding the perpetrators. Following their examination, forensic experts could confirm two critical details. First, Yoon Baek-hee and Kim Seon-young had been murdered on the night of their disappearance, specifically on the evening of June 6th. Second, it was determined that the victims had not only been beaten, but also sexually assaulted prior to their deaths. The cause of death was ultimately ruled as asphyxiation. It is essential to note that Ganghwa Island had an alarmingly low rate of serious crime. Therefore, the brutality of this case reverberated throughout the entire island, capturing the intense interest of even nearby Seoul residents as they followed the developments with bated breath. As the gravity of the situation unfolded, major media outlets mobilized, urgently calling for anyone with information to step forward. The hope was to uncover the truth behind the tragic deaths of a mother and daughter, a case that demanded immediate attention. In Ganghwa Island, the police seemed genuinely concerned, yet their investigation lacked clarity. They appeared to be reacting to symptoms as they emerged, rather than pursuing a solid lead in the serious nature of the case. Their investigation quickly shifted focus to a mentally ill woman in her 50s. This decision stemmed from the fact that her son was a pastor, known for his close relationship with Yoon Baek-hee, the mother of the victims. The police speculated that this woman might have recognized Yoon Baek-hee's wealth and harbored malicious intentions, seeking an opportunity to commit a crime. As the investigation deepened, police began to suspect that a certain woman, aware of Yoon Baek-hee's considerable wealth, may have harbored malicious intentions. It was believed that she had approached Yoon Baek-hee under false pretenses, seeking an opportunity to commit a crime. On the remote shores of Ganghwa Island, the reputation of Yoon Baek-hee was well known. Her financial stability was common knowledge. Yet, as the investigation unfolded, the police cast a wide net, recognizing that Mrs. Kim was not their only suspect. The shadows of suspicion loomed larger, partly fueled by the notorious reputation of certain religious sects in Korea. Yet the problem lay not in the breadth of their inquiry, but rather in the lack of methodical verification by the investigators. The police were obligated to conduct thorough checks. They needed to establish whether the suspect had an alibi during the time of the murder, and if any suspicious behaviors followed the incident. Regrettably, the Ganghwa police bypassed these essential steps. They confronted individuals at the door, interrogating them without ascertaining their actual involvement in the crime. In the absence of solid leads, even the true perpetrator might find it impossible to confess. Mrs. Kim, for instance, vehemently denied any knowledge of the case, insisting that her relationship with Yoon Baek-hee was purely personal, devoid of financial motives. Her two simple sentences left the police momentarily speechless, prompting a sudden realization that they needed to probe deeper. They turned their attention to Yoon Baek-hee's bank account, searching for transactions that might illuminate the case. What they found was startling. Her assets were not nearly as substantial as the rumors suggested. Rather than the rumored 5 billion won, her account held a mere 500 million won, a sum primarily derived from her husband's ginseng business. Intriguingly, on the very night Yoon Baek-hee vanished, a transaction of 100,000 won, approximately $100,000, was withdrawn from her account. This event raised alarming questions about potential connections to the crime. Without delay, the police rushed to the bank branch where the withdrawal took place, seeking insights from the transaction staff. The response they received, however, was unexpected. The bank employee recalled that Yoon Baek-hee had been accompanied by two young men, both appearing to be in their 20s or 30s. However, with over a month having passed, his memory of their physical appearances was hazy. The bank security footage captured only Yoon Baek-hee during the transaction. After several prompts to jog his memory, the employee reluctantly mentioned that one of the men appeared to be wearing a dark blue sports top and black shorts. Yet these vague details were unlikely to lead to a breakthrough in the investigation. Desperate for leads, the police resorted to hypnosis. Following a series of sessions, a suspect sketch was produced, describing a man roughly 5 feet 8 inches tall, clad in shorts, and characterized as a fair-skinned young man. Although the original sketch has since vanished from public view, It was met with widespread derision upon its initial release, criticized for its dismal quality. In a rare move, the police defended their work, attributing the poor likeness to the bank employee's inability to clearly see the suspect's features. Faced with mounting criticism, the police took the unusual step of hypnotizing Yoon Baek-hee's mother-in-law and other acquaintances in hopes of generating a more recognizable sketch. Yet, aside from the bank employee, no one else had actually witnessed the perpetrator, rendering these efforts largely futile. In a twist that seemed almost serendipitous, 6 days after the new sketch was released, an anonymous tip arrived at the police station. A resident from Yoon Baek-hee's village claimed that the individual in the sketch bore a striking resemblance to a local man named Jun, age 26. Furthermore, this informant provided a crucial detail. Jun owned an aging Santana car, frequently parked at the village entrance, which had mysteriously vanished following the crime. Desperate for leads, the police resorted to hypnotizing Yoon Baek-hee's mother-in-law and other individuals connected to the case, hoping to produce a clearer sketch of the suspect. However, the challenge remained that aside from the bank employee, no one had witnessed the perpetrator, leaving the hypnosis of others potentially futile. Yet, in a twist of fate, 6 days after the new sketch was released, the police station received an anonymous tip. The informant, a resident of Yoon Baek-hee's village, asserted that the individual depicted in the sketch bore an uncanny resemblance to a local named Jun, a 26-year-old man. This tip proved crucial, as the informant revealed that Jun owned an old Santana car, a vehicle that was typically parked at the village entrance, but had mysteriously disappeared following the crime. Police investigations quickly revealed that Jun lived close to Yoon Baek-hee's home, and was a close friend of her eldest son, who was serving in the military. With their characteristic determination, the Ganghwa police wasted no time once they learned that Jun was in Seoul with 3 friends. They arrested all 4 without hesitation. Upon verification, those arrested alongside Jun included Ha Young-jun, age 27, Lee Min-young, age 24, and Yoon Ki-il, age 26. A seasoned investigator might note that the detailed mention of their names seldom bodes well for the accused. Initially, the 3 friends were taken in merely for questioning, as a bank employee had recalled seeing 2 young men in the vicinity of Yoon Baek-hee. It was clear that the perpetrator had not acted alone, and given their close ties to Jun, it made sense to bring them in for interrogation. What unfolded next was unexpected. All 4 young men swiftly confessed to murdering Yoon Baek-hee and her daughter, according to Jun's chilling admission. Villagers had speculated that Yoon Baek-hee held a substantial sum of 5,000 won in her bank account, a fact that fueled Jun's scheme to kidnap her for financial gain. To execute this plan, he enlisted the help of his 3 friends, including Ha Young-jun and Lee Min-young. Like Jun, they were unemployed, with only Yoon Ki-il possessing steady employment. In an ironic twist, the entire criminal plot was hatched by Yoon Ki-il, the one individual least reliant on crime for survival. According to the sinister blueprint, from late May to early June, the group conducted several break-ins at Yoon Baek-hee's residence, meticulously planning their dark intentions. The collaboration among them painted a picture of desperation and deceit, culminating in a tragedy that would ripple through their community. The shadow of their actions loomed large as the investigation began to piece together the horrifying truth behind Yoon Baek-hee's disappearance. As the police dug deeper, the chilling reality of the crime started to unfold, revealing not just the what, but the harrowing why that drove these young men to such lengths. In a shocking twist, the mastermind behind the entire criminal plan was Yoon Ki-il, the one individual in the group least reliant on a life of crime. His chilling strategy outlined that, from late May to early June, the group would carry out a series of break-ins at Yoon Baek-hee's home. The group had engaged in petty theft, emboldening their illicit activities. On June 6, 2008, Jun's crew abducted Yoon Baek-hee as she made her way home after dropping her daughter off at school, splitting into 2 factions to carry out their heinous plan. Ha Young-jun and Lee Min-young took Yoon Baek-hee to the bank to extract money, while Jun drove the Santana to pick up Kim Seon-young from school, as previously detailed. Some may find it perplexing that Yoon Baek-hee did not cry out for help inside the bank. The reason was simple yet tragic. Her daughter, Kim Seon-young, was in the hands of her captors. This was a calculated part of their sinister strategy. Initially, Jun's group assured Yoon Baek-hee that she would be released after they secured the money. However, trusting these criminals was a gamble no one should take. The heartbreaking fate of both mother and daughter is now etched in the annals of this tragic case. There's no need to dwell on the details of their grim conclusion, but have you noticed a significant contradiction in this narrative? According to the combined confessions of the suspects, Ha Young-jun and Lee Min-young accompanied Yoon Baek-hee to the bank to facilitate the withdrawal. This was corroborated by the bank employee who recalled two young individuals standing behind Yoon Baek-hee. If this account holds, then the suspect sketch should have depicted either Ha Young-jun or Lee Min-young. So why, when the sketch was unveiled, was Eun-jun the one recognized? In the aftermath of a thorough verification, it appeared the person seen by the bank employee was likely Lee Min-young. The absurdity of this situation was palpable. The revelation about Lee Min-young not wearing shorts at all painted a startling picture. The suspect sketch, it turned out, bore no resemblance to her. It became increasingly clear that the informant had long harbored suspicions about Eun-jun, but lacked the concrete evidence needed to approach the police. The publication of the sketch had given them a chance to voice their suspicions, and in a twist of fate, they guessed correctly. People often seek comfort in the notion of predestined fate, believing that divine intervention guided the police to the true perpetrator. Yet, what unfolded next was even more surprising. During the intense interrogation surrounding the case, investigators unearthed a chilling fact. At the onset of this investigation, it was noted that Yoon Baek-hee was not the only woman to have vanished from the area. 2 years prior, in 2006, a 19-year-old girl named Ha Soo-hee had mysteriously disappeared from the very same village. A thorough examination of the criminal records of the four suspects revealed unsettling connections. 2 years prior, in 2006, the tranquil village became a backdrop for tragedy when a 19-year-old girl named Ha Soo-hee mysteriously disappeared. As investigators delved into the criminal backgrounds of the four suspects, the echoes of her unresolved case loomed ominously over the unfolding events. In a shocking twist, the police stumbled upon the revelation that Ha Soo-hee was Ha Young-jun's half-sister. This unsettling truth sent a wave of foreboding through the investigators. As they pressed on with interrogations, the connections grew more troubling. In a chilling confession, Ha Young-jun admitted that he and Eun-jun had conspired to murder Ha Soo-hee. Their motive mirrored that of the Yoon Baek-hee case. They sought to extort money from Ha Soo-hee's father, who was also Ha Young-jun's father. Yet their plans unraveled as they encountered various obstacles. In a desperate bid to eliminate any evidence, these ruthless individuals took the life of Ha Soo-hee. It was only later that the police uncovered her lifeless body. Her remains were discovered near the serene shores of Sihu Lake in Gyeonggi Province. Following the suspect's testimony, the mysteries surrounding the disappearances of two local women had finally come to light. However, the resolution of the case was far from complete. Initially, all four suspects confessed to their involvement, leading investigators to believe the trial would proceed without complications. But as the trial commenced, an unexpected twist emerged. In a dramatic turn of events, Yoon Ki-il suddenly recanted, claiming he only played a minor role in the planning of the crime. He insisted that they merely offered advice to their friends and had never intended to carry out the heinous act. The other three echoed his sentiments, asserting that they only sought financial gain, never contemplating murder. They argued that the killing was a spur-of-the-moment decision, hoping for leniency from the judge. However, the prosecution quickly countered with two compelling pieces of evidence. First, Eun-jun had used directory assistance to obtain the school phone number of Seon Young, Ha Soo-hee's daughter. While he had not made the call, this vital act demonstrated that the kidnapping plot was meticulously premeditated, contradicting the suspect's claims of impulsiveness. Secondly, in April 2008, over a month prior to the crime, the suspects had procured knives, gloves, tape, and tools intended for body disposal. It was evident they had no intention of allowing their victims to survive. Only Yoon Ki-il had remained an observer in the execution of the crime. He distanced himself from the violent act. Consequently, the local district court imposed the death penalty on Ha Young-jun, the individual who had directly ended the victims' lives. Eun-jun and Lee Min-young received life sentences as accomplices, while Yoon Ki-il was sentenced to 5 years for his lesser role. After the sentencing, all four defendants launched appeals, seeking to overturn their convictions. On July 9, 2009, the Seoul High Court modified Ha Young-jun's death sentence to life imprisonment, while the sentences for the other three remained unchanged. With this verdict, the Ganghwa Island case drew to a close, but the scars left on the family of Yoon Baek-hee would forever mar this quiet community. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in our next investigation. With this, the Ganghwa Island case was brought to a close, but the anguish of Yoon Baek-hee's family would forever remain an unhealed wound on this small piece of land. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in our next investigation.